Do do shabadoo 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 da da ka da ka ka da da skilly wam bam ba dee ba doo ba sabada ba da ba da 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 no no nobody has yabada ba da ka dee do ba ba dee da ba
The song does not match the subject material of our podcast. Bibbly boo, choobily boo, lavagoo, sabagoo, with a boo. Pifatala, ruka, the tea, parality with a boo, baba, the
getting out of frame.
Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, one and all, boys and girls, dogs and cats, stingrays, and other ocean creatures, to another episode of Nobody Asked with Maria.
Well, hello.
Hello. And Colin. I am him. Today we'll be discussing the case of the shooting of Breonna Taylor. Where did it start? Where did it go? Where is it now? Things have continued happening. That's rare for cases that involve the cops. Usually it's like the cops said this happened and then that's it. But a bunch of people got mad and Republicans say protests don't do anything. All right. That'll be our subject for the day. How are you feeling, Mom?
I'm feeling great.
You feeling great?
Yeah.
You get some nice rain over in Mississippi.
It's been endless rain. I'm thinking of building about like a pontoon out of pool noodles and just like strapping them onto the RV in case we start floating away, because this is a lot of rain.
Yeah, like how many are you stepping in? Like, is it a continuous puddle at this point where your guys' trailer is?
Oh yeah, it's quite wet.
I would like a picture of that after. That's exciting. How is that affecting the being built house? How do they prepare for that?
I mean, basically our house now appears to be on an island. That's what it looks like, because there's just water all
cool.
the way around. But, you know, stuff's still happening. They should be painting the inside today. So that's cool. Some of the outside.
During the rain?
Yeah, right. You know, I saw them take some 2x4s and make little bridges across the puddles. So it's kind of funny.
Oh, it's very, very cool. Yep, I'll be over in Mississippi very soon, and I'll be excited to see the new house. It's beautiful and sunny in New York. We're just getting to that zone where it's like not too hot outside for pants 1 out of every 7 days. It's like we're hovering in the 70s right now. Now it's a humid 70s, and if you're in the sun, it's too hot. But if you're in the shade, it's just spectacular right now. So trying to get some enjoyment out of that.
Absolutely.
I've been writing a lot of music because I did a party with friends where I bartended the party, and I created my own little bar, and I charge people like very close to at cost for drinks. And it went into the wee hours of the night, and Colin had a few drinks. And then Colin may have said that to his band, he's like, I had written out this like concept for an album, and I had written out some like early ideas for songs, but drunk Colin said that he's got a whole album and it's basically fleshed out, and he's got like 6 songs that are, and so now I've been writing to kind of catch up to what I promised while drunk. And so it's one way to incentivize progress is just to overpromise and then have your band be like, oh, well, let's practice those songs on Thursday. And you're like, okay, sounds great, let's do it. You know,
I mean, you really only need to come with 1 at a time, right? If you're going to be practicing, they have
probably
to learn.
2. Yeah, 2's safe. That's kind of where we are. I'm trying to edit your mic settings and accidentally editing mine. Perfect. And we're back. All right. Well, Mom, do you want to introduce the very first and also only topic?
Yeah, we're going to talk about,
I'm only kidding. I'm only joking. I'm only having a bit of a laugh. because we have a sponsor. And again, it's a rare occasion. Usually our sponsors reach out and they ask me to write copy. Today, our sponsor has provided copy to me. This is my way of saying I do not claim to have written the text that I'm about to read. But let me throw it out to you. So today's sponsor is the National Pork Lobby. And here's what the National Pork Lobby wants me to let you know. Laws are threats made by the dominant socioeconomic ethnic group of a given nation. It's just a promise of violence that's enacted, and the police are basically an occupying army. You know what I mean? Anyway, you want to make some bacon? The National Pork Lobby.
Oh, ouch. Yikes.
Hey, it wasn't me. It was the National Pork Lobby.
It was indeed. Nothing to be said. You know, do with that what you will.
Yep, oink oink. So anyway, Breonna Taylor.
So, back in March 13th of 2020, there was an incident in Louisville, Kentucky that resulted in, the death of Breonna Taylor. Do you want to... I think we were going to take a look backwards at how it was reported initially and kind of work our way through where we are now, because they might be pretty different places. Hi, Scotland.
So, yeah, a lot has changed in this story, but I found what I believe to be the very first ever article concerning this incident. It's in the Courier Journal, which I believe to be one of Louisville's premier news aggregators or whatever. And this was published at 7:33 a.m. on March 13th. So this was published about 6 hours after Breonna Taylor died. And this is how this story was described. And I'm not saying that this is bad journalism. It's not. This is 6 hours after. And they certainly had no idea what this would blow up into. But they say a Louisville Metro police sergeant was shot and wounded, and a woman was killed early Friday during a narcotics investigation near St. Andrews Church Road and Doss High School, according to authorities. Officers were at an apartment on Springfield Drive about 1 a.m. Friday, serving a search warrant as part of a narcotics investigation, according to the Assistant Police Chief, Josh Judah. As officers arrived and entered the residence, suspects shot at the officers, Judah said. Sergeant Jonathan Mattingly was shot in the leg and taken to University of Louisville Hospital, where he underwent surgery and is expected to survive, LMPD officials said at a Friday afternoon press conference. A female was shot and killed during the encounter after 3 LMPD officers returned fire, and a suspect was arrested at the scene, Chief Steve Conrad said. She was identified Sunday by the Jefferson County coroner as Breonna Taylor, 26. Kenneth Walker has been charged with the attempted murder of a police officer. Conrad said it is not known if the woman was armed, nor how many times the officers were fired at, and how many times the officers fired back at the suspects. Mattingly and 2 other LMPD detectives have been placed on administrative leave as police conduct an investigation of the shooting. No body camera footage is available from the incident, as the officers in the Criminal Interdiction Division conducting Friday's search warrant do not wear cameras, Conrad said. This is certainly a little bit of a contentious subject. Cosgrove was previously sued for excessive force by a man he shot in 2006 at a Speedway gas station in the East End after the man allegedly backed his car towards the officer at a high rate of speed. But the federal judge would end up siding with Cosgrove in the case, according to court records. This is the first ever report of the death of Breonna Taylor. And, outside of the usual, when a cop is shot, there's all sorts of furor that brings up. It paints a pretty clear picture, which is essentially that a search warrant, a pretty routine thing, was carried out at 1 a.m. And when they entered the residence, the response of one of the people that were in that residence was to shoot at the police officers, which is, with some very important omissions, essentially what happened. He shot once at the police officer, and there is some tenuousness about what that search warrant was. It was initially a no-knock warrant, and then it was a knock and identify. It was changed to a knock and identify warrant a while after that. And there is a great deal of contention, and really, what I would believe is the central pin that determines whether or not this was police negligence or just a lot of bad things happening in rapid succession, is whether or not they identified it themselves. And so now I bring you to March 27th, 2020. Now there are some updates from September of 2020. So this is 2 weeks after everything occurred in that police raid. I'm just going to change your audio setting.
Ooh,
right.
You can look at how quickly we see a little bit of a shift because we've got the word botched in there, and look at this picture we're using of Breonna Taylor dressed in her EMT outfit.
Yes, a very different photo, and a different word being used. Now, obviously, these attorneys are not the prosecution attorneys for Kenneth Walker, Breonna Taylor's boyfriend, who fired one shot at the police. But this is only 2 weeks later, and it begins to come a little bit closer to what we now know to be, or what we now understand to be true about this search warrant. And so the union representing Louisville Metro police officers lashed out at a local judge Friday for releasing from jail an inmate who allegedly shot a police officer earlier this month, calling the action a slap in the face to everyone wearing a badge. Police unions should be stomped into the ground and made to plead for their life. Oh, it did say that, sorry. But an attorney for Kenneth Walker claims the police conducted an improper raid, which led to officers shooting at an innocent woman 8 times, killing her. The woman, 26-year-old Breonna Taylor, was a certified EMT working at 2 local hospitals. Defense attorney Rob Eggert said police burst into Taylor's home without announcing their presence and fired at least 22 times, with bullets going into neighboring apartments. And it was incredible that Mrs. Taylor was the only one killed. Mom, do you want to expand a little bit on those 22 shots briefly before I read any further? Because
sure.
In the neighboring apartments, because I do think that's an interesting element to this whole thing.
It is an interesting element. So, I guess when the raid happened, there were, I believe, 7 officers on scene. They knocked on the door. This is their contention. They knocked on the door. They did not identify themselves initially. They thought, let me give them time to answer the door. But they knocked very loudly, and woke Breonna and her boyfriend Kenneth up. And they're both like, what the heck was that, right? And so Breonna starts yelling, who is it? Who is it? And, the police can hear her in there, but they haven't answered the door quickly enough. So, about 45 seconds later, they decide, let's just knock this door straight down. They take a couple big old hits to it, basically rip the door off the hinges, and Officer Jonathan Mattingly enters the apartment. He enters through the main doorway, and it is dark inside the apartment. It's relatively dark out in the hallway. There's just kind of there's an outdoor light that's kind of backlighting them a little bit, but nobody knows what the heck is going on because there's no lights on.
And then the only other light was the television that was in the bedroom of Kenneth and Breonna, correct?
Correct. So nobody can really see anything. Everybody, whatever you do see is probably in silhouette, so you don't know what the heck's going on. So Kenneth, shoots one shot at Mattingly, a low shot. He wasn't really aiming to kill because he doesn't know what the heck is going on. And he hits Officer Mattingly in the leg. Officer Mattingly kind of goes down, and he fires like 6 shots. And then, let's see, who's the next one? Miles Cosgrove is right behind him, actually steps on Mattingly during this process, and unloads 16 shots from the doorway straight down the hallway, and it hits Breonna. I want to say 6 times he hit him. And then there is a pause, right? There is like a pause. There's nothing happening. Now remember, I told you that 7 officers showed up. Only 3 shot. The next one that starts shooting is...
One second on the second officer I found it very interesting. In his own testimony, he said that he doesn't even remember shooting, that
Right.
he didn't hear gunshots, he just saw white flashes, and that if somebody told him that he had not shot, he would have believed them. So this person who I believe he's the one that ended up firing the fatal shot,
He did.
doesn't even remember shooting. Shouldn't be a fucking cop. I mean, you've got to have your head on your shoulders in this situation. And it's like, on one hand, I want to like really emphasize to viewers how much empathy should be shown to the people in the home, because can you imagine your door being banged down really loudly and then being hit off of its hinges, and you don't know that it's cops? You 100% think you're in danger. I mean, without
Absolutely.
On the other hand, the police have bad information. So they thought it was only Breonna Taylor in this apartment, which is insane. Even with that, like, on one hand, this is a relatively recent relationship that she had with Kenneth Walker. So maybe you give some leeway on this, like, not having the information that they would be together for 1 month. But also, they should know that her sister lives with her. Her sister was not there that night, but it seemed like they didn't even know that there was another resident to the home, which is just bonkers. And then they have this guy making tactical errors and not knowing that he's fatally shooting someone.
Yes.
Unbelievable.
But now we move on to the third guy. Okay, the third person who shot. This guy's name is Brett Hankinson. Okay, so he, here's the shooting, right? He moves around. So Breonna lives in an apartment building. So you've got kind of one of those kind of open areas, that's like an internal covered area where you've got like 4 or 6 doors going into the different apartments. And so the police that are shooting into her apartment are in that, in that hallway where there's other apartments, shooting directly down her hallway, right? But Brett Hankinson goes back around to the outside of the building where she's got kind of a, like a little patio area, and he shoots into that patio area, which there's shades drawn, there's curtains, and that is the sister's bedroom. And he just starts shooting willy-nilly because he sees muzzle flashes, even though nobody is shooting from inside at this point. All of the muzzle flashes would be from the police, and he starts shooting willy-nilly into a window he cannot see through. And he, there's like at least 3 stray bullets that go into an apartment, I believe next to Breonna Taylor's apartment, where there's, a family with a child, and into, I believe, an apartment above as well, also has some bullets, and there's also a family that lives there.
The apartment above was the second officer, were bullets from the second officer that were being shot. But the adjacent one, with the pregnant woman and her child, that one was the person that started firing willy-nilly into 2 windows. Which also begs the question, what kind of bullets are these? Like, are these Full Metal Jacket, or are they hollow tips? Because isn't the whole point of hollow tips that they get stopped by walls? Are these terrible walls? What's going on here?
I mean, that's a fair question. I know normally you're supposed to have like a firewall between units to prevent, fire moving from one to the next. So you would think at least between units, you would have a better wall than you might have, from bedroom to bedroom. But it's a fair question. Maybe it was all just drywall. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. Crazy.
So those 3 officers shot. I would also like to note that they were in plain clothes. So, it wasn't like once the door was broken down, there was any way that Kenneth Walker or Breonna Taylor would have said, oh, these are police officers, we should stop what they're doing. It is possible at some point that they may have identified themselves, but it's completely unverified because nobody was wearing body camera.
No one is wearing a body cam. There's a number of elements to this where you just have to ask why. Now, the first one is, in the immediate aftermath of this, interviews either by the Times or an investigation by the police department found that there were multiple people that should have been able to hear the police identify themselves, people with open windows, people that were on their balconies at the time, etc., who said that they heard the banging, they did not hear an identification. There's a case of one person who was in the apartment above them who revised his statement 4 months later and said that his memory was blurry, but he thinks they did identify themselves. But that is a change from what he initially said, which is that they had not identified themselves. Excuse me. But on top of that, there's a number of elements to this that just beg the question. Like, that, to me, there's no confusion about why Kenneth Walker would fire a shot at the people that are bursting into this apartment. I think that you think that you're in danger. And if we believe his story, which is that the police did not identify themselves, which, given so many of the other variables, I am very likely to believe, then it makes perfect sense that you would fire a shot. Do I think it is, hindsight BS, him saying that he was firing down so as to not kill them? No, I think probably a lawyer told him to say that. But in general, totally on board with this idea that he would fire on somebody that's bursting into an apartment. Here's what I don't understand. What I don't understand is, even the version of the warrant that they believe to be legitimate at this time, we think, is that Breonna Taylor is part of Jamarcus, her ex-boyfriend's drug trafficking system, and that she is receiving packages here at her address. Why would you perform a raid at 1 a.m. in plain clothes? What's the point of performing a raid in plain clothes? What's the point of, if you're supposed to be announcing yourself, what being in plain clothes, the only thing that being in plain clothes does is it prevents us from believing you when you say you're police. Anyone can say that they're police, but the badge and the get-up is a much better way of me being like, you might be a fucking cop. But for them to say, I just don't understand why you would be in plain clothes in this situation. And theoretically, they've been preparing for this raid. Why that? And then also, do you know what would have cleared up all of this for the cops, if the cop's story is real? A fucking body camera. Yeah. It's like the cops are so anti-body camera, and that to me is the most damning element of the case, that police are often corrupt and police unions are often corrupt, is that, to me, if you're a police officer and you believe that anti-police animosity is on the rise and that people are making false claims against good police officers, a body camera in many of these cases would exonerate police officers. The fact that they are so anti-body cameras, and even the SWAT team that shows up later that does have body cameras, you see them saying, turn off your body camera. That these two elements, to me, show that the police don't even believe what they are doing is legitimate in this case. And that when you ask these whys, why would Kenneth Walker, who is not in the game, who does not have prior criminal ties to our knowledge, who does not, he does not have a record. He has no record. Strong anti-police animosity, that he wants to start a fight. He didn't have anything to hide. There were no drugs in the apartment, right? So, honestly, if I was getting raided by the police, like in my apartment right now, I'd be like, come in. I'm going to try this in court, right? But I'm not going to cause a fuss right now because I have nothing to hide. The only reason that makes sense to me that Kenneth would fire is that he legitimately feared for his life. And then you just have to ask, why were the cops being so coy about this whole thing? Why were they doing it so early in the morning to freak them out? There might be a good answer to that, but I don't understand it. Why were they in plain clothes? Why was this warrant so last minute? Why was this warrant at the same time as the Jamarcus warrant? That's classically a bad idea. There's so many elements of the thing where you're just like, what the fuck is going on? Why would they make these decisions?
I feel like I could speculate about that. So I know, like, a lot of times they will do early morning raids because you're likely to be there. You're probably asleep. There's a safe bet that you're there. And they would execute both warrants at the same time because they don't want one of you tipping off the other one. So they'll just try to go after you both at the same time. So that part I understand. But I mean, I also want to point out that the people that are executing the warrant are not the ones that went and got the warrant to begin with, right? They are handed, hey, today this is what we're doing. We're going in, and am I all jiggly jaggly? Oh, okay.
No, Ellie texted me and said that I have grime on my camera.
Oh, you look good. I forgot what I was saying. Oh, yeah, early morning, because you're likely to be there. You're likely to be asleep at that hour. 1 a.m., I mean, I probably would have pushed it to 2 or 3 a.m., but yeah, you're likely to be there. I don't know. That would be my thoughts on that one. Hey, I want to tell you something really quick. Okay. Side note. You know how you keep asking me what happened to the thief guy, right? Who stole stuff from our work site?
Yep.
Okay, so the owners of the campground said, "What's going on with this dude?" Because they've let him stay here longer so that a warrant would be able to be given to him, knowing where he's at, right?
Yep.
And so they're like, "But we want him out because we think he's stealing stuff from here too."
Okay. Cool.
So we call, our contractor, and we're like, "Hey, do you know what's going on with that?" So he calls the police. He calls the sheriff's department, and they're like, "We're about to pull the warrant right now." So they pull the warrant, and so Dad's watching, right? And this morning he's like, it's like 9 or 10 a.m. and your dad calls the contractor, and he's like, "Hey, he's here right now." So contractor calls the sheriff. Next thing you know, sheriff are here, arrested. Your dad's got pictures of him in handcuffs. So we just watched it all happen. It was funny because the police let him finish his cigarette. So that was funny. But
All right.
he's arrested, and he's booted from the RV park, but his RV is still here right now. And there's a bunch of other, nefarious characters that also seem to be living in an RV. A lot of men living in one small RV, to be honest. It's kind of weird. But
They're all in the one RV?
Yeah, and it's a small one.
Okay.
So, side note, that's what's happening here I just watched a warrant get executed, and it was pretty low key.
Pretty low key. Well, because he had that good inside intel that he's here. And real briefly, let's just go through some hellos and thank yous. Hello, Scotland. Hello, Ellie. Hello, Paulette. Hello, Diamond Girl. Hello, Ashley. Hello, Crafting with the MTT Paintbrush. And hello to Mouthpiece Asterisk. Or I guess you could also pronounce it Mouthpiece. Thank you to everyone for watching. We're having a very good time here. Yeah, there's so many questions that are difficult to answer with this one, but I do think that the plainclothes is among the most confusing. And then the fact that no one was able to verify the fact that they identified themselves. I just and the fact that there's no answer to, why, if Kenneth knew that it was cops, why would he shoot? There's no answer to that. There's no motive for him to do that. To me, lends credence to the fact that he did not believe that it was police officers that were coming through the door, and that it is that police negligence that led to the death of Breonna Taylor. But that no problem now, peace. That was kind of where it was at, and I think that a lot of people were able to see that there was some fuckery afoot with this whole situation.
Major fuckery.
Major fuckery, as we'd like to say.
But that's just the actual incident. What we're seeing right now coming to fruition, because is anybody going to pay for actually murdering Breonna Taylor? No. Instead, we have to go this surreptitious route where we talk about conspiracies and, somebody's civil rights being denied through this warrant, because this warrant was very fucked up. So it's Joshua Janes. Okay, he's the one who applied for the warrant. He was not on the scene. As I said, nobody that was part of applying for the warrant was on the scene. And the 3 people that are currently being charged, well, there's 4 people being charged. One of them was on the scene. But the other 3 it has everything to do with this warrant. Everything to do with this warrant. So you know, as we've kind of said, that Breonna Taylor had previously been dating this guy named Jamarcus Glover. He, you know, he might have had some nefarious dealings and doings and whatnot. And I believe that he, you know, there was a car that was registered in Breonna's name that has previously been seen in front of Jamarcus's house. Keep in mind, Jamarcus lived like 10 minutes away. It wasn't like he lived in the same apartment complex. He lived elsewhere. And so, and you know, there's also some questions about, you know, the address that was on his bank accounts. Was he still using Breonna's address? But again, you know, they kind of broke up for the last time like a month before this happened. So they had an on and off again relationship. And, you know, at the point that they executed this warrant, it was off. At some point, the U.S. Postal inspectors were tasked with kind of watching the packages that were coming to Breonna's house. They were not tasked by the Louisville PD or this task force. It was a completely different entity because the the postal inspectors had some sort of bad blood with this department. So they just wouldn't do shit for this department. So that it kind of came around some different way, and they were watching Breonna's packages, okay? And the postal inspectors say, we didn't see anything weird. As somebody who has delivered the mail, you know, you kind of know when you see weird stuff.
Yep.
And most people are not buying weird stuff. Or if you buy weird stuff, it's randomly. I mean, one time I delivered a giant box full of bullets, and I was like, well, that's pretty weird. But, you know, sometimes you're delivering some weird stuff, and you do make a mental note of it, and you kind of do just naturally watch that house when you deliver weird things. I had this one guy on my route that had tattoos on his eyelids, and he got packages every single day, and he would meet you at the mailbox, and he was like, you know, amped up at all times, you know, and he knew the tracking number on every package. He knew when they were supposed to arrive, you know. He knew, oh man, I was expecting more packages. Like the 12 I just handed him weren't enough. You know, like you know those people. And there was nothing weird going on at Breonna Taylor's apartment. But that the whole basis for the warrant was the idea that she was receiving packages of a mysterious nature that would involve some sort of drug activity. And so that's what they said. Let's see. Joshua James, who wrote the warrant, he said, you know, she's receiving some stuff, right? Yep. And that they're allegedly looking for either those packages or maybe drug money if she was somehow controlling the money. That was the reason to go to her house. Now, Kelly Goodlett, she also, I think she was his partner. She was Jane's partner. And she also looked at the warrant, and then she added a little bit extra on there, right? She added, like, she knew that wasn't true. Jane knew that wasn't true, that the inspector said that. Kelly also knew that wasn't true. And Kelly said, she added that Taylor was using that address as his current address, even though they knew that wasn't true, right? Because didn't they also have a warrant on where he actually lived, on Elliott Street? And Kyle Meany, he is their boss. So he led that department that was doing these things. And he's the one that approved the affidavit. And he also knew that was false information and let it go through. So they hand all of this stuff to a judge who's like got no reason not to believe it because, you know, what's the other thing that they like to say? You know, due to the nature of how drug trafficking operates, those are the reasons we want to do this. We believe she's receiving packages. We're gonna say that the inspector said that they've seen some stuff when they have in fact not seen stuff. Yep. That is what this is all about. I will also say that Judge Mary Shaw was the one that signed it. Let's see. The entire presentation that she was given was about 12 minutes long, and there were 5 different warrants included in that. So it was just kind of like real fast, sign off on this, sign off on this, sign off on this. This is what it's about, blah, 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 blah. Are you just moving your stuff around?
Ellie says that my angle is too low. So
You look beautiful.
I know. But Ellie does.
So
was the result of it, like, was this information found, that the fact that there is this discrepancy and that they had created this information that led to the warrant, Was this through the FBI investigation, or what investigation turned this up?
I have a feeling that they knew about it before the FBI investigation, but that is how we are getting this information at this time. Like, that is what the FBI investigation is all around. It is about affidavits falsified for warrants and violating the civil rights of Breonna Taylor. That is what it is all about. On August 4th of this year, so just a few weeks ago, Merrick Garland, that was what he put out. He said, this is what's going on with this Breonna Taylor. I don't think I expected federal charges. Like, my mind is a little bit blown by that, but also impressed.
Yep.
Impressed that that's where we're at. So Joshua James, so he's the one who presented the actual warrant and affidavit. That guy, let's see, he's getting charged with 4 things: falsifying records, making false statements, conspiracy, and civil rights violations. Same thing with Kyle Meany, who was the boss. Now, Kelly Goodlett, she just pled guilty yesterday, right? She pled guilty to conspiracy, and only to conspiracy. The thought being, she's the one that's giving everybody else up, right? The first person over the line, over the finish line, gets the deal, and she's getting the deal. So she only got 1 charge, even though she clearly was involved in this process just as much as everybody else, if not a little extra. So she, and that's a 5-year is the maximum penalty for what she's done. But yeah, she pled guilty to conspiracy. She is giving everybody up. Everybody else has pled not guilty, and their trials will happen probably in October. But the other thing I wanted to say about Kelly, right? She's not a good lady. She's not just caught up. She's not just caught up in this. So her and her partner Joshua James, who again, he's the one that actually wrote the warrant. They had a meeting in his garage where they discussed how to proceed with all of this when it was starting to get found, like about 2 months after Breonna was murdered. About 2 months after, they met in Jane's garage and planned how they were going to cover this up. So that's why I'm saying this conspiracy started right away. They were like, hey, let's say that we were told, some sergeant told us that this package thing was real. So that's what we based it on. The sergeant told us that. Let's just get our story straight right now and agree to the story. There was text, there's all kinds of stuff. There is a lot of evidence because the AG does not press charges without having his ducks in a row. So that's what I gotta say about that. That's just what I have to say.
So yeah, I mean, it all ends back in a place that we've discussed a while ago, which is that when it's the judicial system against an individual, especially an individual that does not have regular dealings with the judicial system, it's like playing chess against a chess master. It's that they understand what the variables are, they understand what they need to control, and this to me is why the police in Pennsylvania don't have those body cameras and why they turn off their body cameras, is that they know that they can avoid charges by decreasing the amount of information that is available to a prosecutor. And they know that they can create charges against the people they want to create it against, like Breonna Taylor's boyfriend, just by saying things, because the testimony of a police officer is taken as more legitimate than the testimony of any individual, even if that police officer has an incentive to get a prosecution. Incentives are not taken into account when it's law enforcement officers because they're just treated like these sovereign and truthful citizens. In this case, it takes 2 years because even though these people fucked up so bad, they understood where they needed to cover themselves, and they did not expect a federal investigation level thing to happen here. Certainly, if there had not been the public pressure behind this case to get things figured out, it seems incredibly unlikely that this lady would be pleading guilty and there would be conspiracy charges. And the only thing I can hope, and I don't know if this is hope beyond hope or something, is that when a conspiracy charge gets brought about, you'll see subpoenas for a lot of communication records. And in this case, it's a subpoena for conspiracy within the police department. And so will we see subpoenas for more communication between those police officers and will things come out from there? Because with just the information we have here, it seems like even if we know for sure that they did not properly announce themselves, that these police officers are not going to be prosecuted for murdering someone. And for murdering someone, and oh my God, dude, the video after where they're ignoring the fact that Breonna is dead in this apartment, and they're just threatening to physically harm Kenneth because in their mind he's a cop killer already. He's shot a cop, and they're just so in this fucking fraternity. They're so team cop, right? It's like, it's like when somebody shits on your quarterback and you're a fan of football. It doesn't have anything to do with whether or not your quarterback is a terrible person. The Steelers will always rep for Ben Roethlisberger because they're in that mentality. And all these cops are in that mentality. You just see them threatening Kenneth like he's done something wrong. Oh, my God. Yeah, I don't know what else can come from this, but the only thing that we can hope is that conspiracy leads to more subpoenas, leads to more conspiracy. But I don't know.
Well, I do want to say there is a fourth person who is also being federally charged. He's being charged with unconstitutional excessive force. And that's Brett Hankinson. That's the dude that's just shooting wildly through the patio door and the window when he can't see anything. That guy is being charged with excessive force. That feels like a shit charge, but the reality is I don't know that he landed any shots. So maybe that's as much as they can get with him, right? The person who actually killed Breonna was Cosgrove, and he is definitely going to get away with nothing. I'll also say that Brett Hankinson was the only one who has previously been charged either, right? He was acquitted on state level charges for wanton endangerment of Taylor's neighbors. So the neighbors.
Crazy.
What's also interesting, and look at this however you wish, is the idea that there was two different sets of neighbors that had bullets come through, right? There was only charges for the one, and it is the white family, right? There was a black family also who had bullets come through. Police didn't feel like making charges for that one. So,
it was above. It was above, and it was from the gun of the person that was actually firing towards the people that he thought were firing at the police officer. So it does seem like there's some complexity there.
There's some I guess there was too much complexity. We can't call that endangerment. Huh?
You could make it just a race thing if you want.
Well, and there's some other things around this that are kind of weird, and I don't know if they fall too far into the conspiracy category or if they are really worth a bigger look. But there is this idea around gentrification and about how Louisville wanted to clean up the city, and one of the ways that they were doing that was let's take over some of these certain areas and sell them to big developers, and gentrify the area. And that would have been where Jamarcus lived. Jamarcus is the house that he was staying in. I believe it later sold for $1 to a developer. And so was this all on purpose to accomplish that task? Was everybody in cahoots to try to, get certain people out of the neighborhood so that they could then buy up all of the properties for pennies on the dollar and, do what they wanted with it? I don't know if that's too much of a conspiracy, but there is.
Based on the information that we have, Jamarcus is the only person that's actually committed a crime. It does seem like he did have legitimate drug trafficking operation. Now, I don't think that should be illegal, but it does seem maybe a bit of a reach considering there was that. And it doesn't even seem like Jamarcus is contesting it. If there's a conspiracy, I do suspect that Jamarcus or any of his co-conspirators would be saying, this shit got planted or something. Then I think we'd be more down that conspiracy road. But at the very least, if the cops were planting shit, they certainly would have planted it at Breonna Taylor's home, and they didn't. So props to those cops not planting stuff. You're better than the NYPD in that way.
Maybe. Or maybe they just couldn't. There was no time. Everything went so sideways. So how are they going to do it? There is this theory going around as well that they never really executed the warrant, that they never did the search for the drugs or the packages or the money that they had initially went there for, because of the shootout situation, because they killed Breonna, and so then it turned into an investigation of that. But when you look at the number of pictures of the situation, right? We've got pictures inside the sister's closet of a bullet in her clothes. I mean, we see a shoe that got shot. You know what I mean? Like we've seen like all of these tiny little details. One would think that if there was money, a big stash of drug money somewhere, or if there was drugs stashed somewhere, that they would have found it.
Oh yeah, I mean they found a bullet in a dresser of the sister, right? I mean that clearly a search. That something that does not happen is that something worse happens at a site, and they go, well, we're gonna look around less then. That is not how the police have ever worked. They'll look around more than something warrants, right? They will, the cops will always use incredibly small things in order to create probable cause, in order to search high and low for any evidence of a crime, because cops hate the Constitution. Cops hate the right to privacy, because cops have this fucking caricature of a criminal in their head, and they believe that they're surrounded by these criminals, and that these criminals are being protected by the Constitution, and so they don't even think they're doing something bad when they, bring a drug dog to a car and then get it to indicate by being, by incentivizing it to indicate by responding really happily when it indicates. Dogs always want to satisfy their owners. And so, but they don't think that that's such a big deal, because all it does is give them the right to violate someone's privacy, which will only negatively affect them if they have committed a crime. The, cops are so in love with this caricature of criminals, and so in a love-hate relationship with the Constitution, that they're not going to have something bad happen and then stop looking for the other thing. Oh, I can't look for drugs now. That's just not how anything happens.
No. If they had found drugs, they would have let us know, because it would have verified their point of view. It would have been like, see, we were right.
Yeah, so, they were certainly trying to protect their fellow cops. The fact that it was so difficult to do so is more evidence to the fact that these cops did something fucked up.
They fucked up. They majorly fucked up.
When you
and
have
nobody's going to pay
side of this argument that has complete control over the crime scene, and they are one of the accused parties, but they get to investigate the crime scene. They get to create the image of what happens. They have almost complete control on the storyline of what occurred, and it still seems like fuckery occurred. That is not points to the cops' favor, dude. That is...
No.
God.
No. It's crazy. What is it? Was it the New York Times where they did kind of a recreation? And I get so thrown by the recreation, because they put Hankinson, who was the one who shot through the patio door, that guy, they put him basically standing in the parking lot. Like, why in the world would you ever be shooting from that far away into an apartment? Like, what planet was he on?
So it was a first floor apartment, which you entered kind of, if you think about
through the side.
We spent a lot of times in Motel 6s, right? You have this entry like stairway thing. It was kind of like that, and you could enter on the first floor through the side. Mm-hmm. And the way that the recreation made it seem was that when gunshots occurred, many of the cops fled, including this police officer, and then he fled around the flank of the apartment and began shooting in when there's a gap in shooting.
Yeah, but from so far, like, just the way they recreated it, they put him basically standing in the parking lot instead of just standing right outside the patio door. It just seems like a weird place. It seems like pointless shooting. Why would you be standing? What are you doing? What are you doing?
Dude, destroying evidence. I mean, imagine if they had managed to kill Kenneth. If they had managed to kill Kenneth, this entire story would be completely different. This entire story, what we would hear is that they attempted to enact a warrant. They weren't responded to when they identified themselves as police. They broke down the door and immediately they began getting shot at, and they killed the 2 people inside. That's the story we would have heard. But because Kenneth lived, and because Kenneth was able to contest their version of events, the cops' version of events, then we get the investigation into the neighbors around. Then we get all of that publicization. But if they had managed to kill Kenneth, then we wouldn't be talking about Breonna Taylor at all, very likely, because all we would know is that somebody shot cops and that they shot back. But they didn't manage to kill Kenneth. Frankly, it's amazing they didn't manage to kill anyone else, right? There were kids on 2 different apartments that they fired bullets into. And all it takes is one for them to have killed a child in this. And what would have come out of that? They would have just said that a gunfight ensued and there was an outside casualty. I mean, I don't know. Do I think that guy that fired into those 2 doors thought in the immediate aftermath of everything going to shit, like, I need to conceal evidence? No, I think it was not that fast.
I'm loving Mouthpiece. Like, he just like you to smash the like button. I'm glad we're doing a good job for you. It does feel weird when white people talk about topics that definitely hit the black community a certain way, and you wanna give respect to that as best as you can, because I feel sometimes like things happen first to the black community, right? And they shout at us, and we only halfway listen until it affects us. So,
Yep.
So it's just good, like, be aware. This is going to affect all of us. They're just telling us. They're telling us, hey, this is some fuckery you guys need to pay attention to.
Yeah. Yep. Smash that like button. It helps that it's you, who's just a very understanding person, and then me, who has a vendetta against cops. So, that'll definitely affect our opinions on this whole thing.
Definitely.
Dude, I went to that Rage Against the Machine concert before going to Des Moines, and I mean, it whips you up into a fury, dude. And then after they get off on the some of those that work forces are the same that burn crosses song, and everyone is losing their minds. By the way, so many. I mean, we paint this picture of, like, that this massively divided country, especially on racial lines. But go to a Rage Against the Machine concert, and you will see a woman in her 50s with that Karen haircut, like sitting next to a black guy with tattoos and everything, and they are both headbanging to a Hispanic dude screaming that the cops are the fucking problem, and everyone is like, fuck yes. There were so many, like, middle-aged white people that were reliving their, their protest days during the LA riots, really thrown down. But it whips you up into a fury. And then they end the concert, and I think this is intentional. They put on "Don't Worry, Be Happy" right after that, like, just as everyone's walking out, like, please don't start getting in fights, because you're so mad. It really makes it happen, dude.
Oh, that's great.
Good times. I really enjoyed that concert.
So, what do we expect next from this? In October, everybody, other than Kelly, Goodlett, who has pled guilty to the conspiracy charges, the other 3 parties have all pled not guilty, and their trials are set to begin in mid-October on different days for different ones. But so that's what is happening next with that. But realistically, the ones that shot her are never going to be brought to justice. It's not going to happen.
No.
That unit has been disbanded. It doesn't exist anymore. Probably largely because of this, and largely because of the public outrage. So you brought it up earlier, the idea that, some people believe that protests don't do anything. I think we're seeing a lot right now that protests do something. Social media is doing something. Everybody is being called to task now, where they used to be able to hide, and they can't anymore. And for me, that's good stuff. That's what you want to hear, because I think for a long time we've all felt, voiceless in some way, or like, well, I don't know what to do. I can't do anything. It's not going to make it, that nothing's going to make a difference. And we're seeing here, not on a big enough scale, but it's like, one step at a time, we're seeing something happen. And that's cool by me. On an additional side note, but it's related. Kenneth Walker, again, he had no criminal record. He was about to become a mail carrier and work for the Postal Service. So, it just hits me a certain way,
Gang, dude. He was one of ours.
He was one of us. And the fact that the postal inspectors were like, nah, that did not happen. Don't put my name on what you did here. Didn't happen. I'm all about that too. I'm all about the U.S. postal inspectors. Yep, they're not signing in. They're not signing up. They're not backing this. They're like, did not do it. Was not part of this. Colin saying, gang, gang. Oh, thank you.
You know what I'm about, Ashley. Yeah. Those guys are never going to be brought to justice. It does feel like it's nice that the conspiracy, I guess it's kind of weird to say, nice that the conspiracy goes wider than these ones so that there is somebody that can be crucified for this injustice, so that it doesn't appear that something like this can just happen and nobody is brought to task. But it is unfortunate that even still the people that committed the injustice are going to get away with it. But this happens, over and over again in our history. There are many people alive today who are just walking around because they got away with some of the shit that you hear about. The people that killed Emmett Till, I mean, so cut and dry. I'm so glad that the guys that killed Ahmaud Arbery are dead, because I thought it was going to be the same shit again. But the people that killed Emmett Till were free.
Wait, they're dead?
They're dead because of natural causes.
Oh, okay. What the fuck? I was like, what? What happened? I must have missed that. Okay.
They died well after Emmett Till, and that was a dry case and a half.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the Aubrey case. That was the guy that was jogging. You just
they're not dead. They're in. What are you talking about?
I got confused with what you just said. You just squashed two things together, and I got confused.
Here's what I'm saying: is that there are many of these cases where we know for sure that something bad happened, and the criminal system is not able to get these people because the people that did it understand the criminal system. The criminal system will work for you if you understand how to protect yourself. And it will work for you if you did something fucked up, if you know how to protect yourself. And what are the rules, everybody? Say it with me. Don't talk to cops and get a lawyer, okay? Don't talk to cops, get a lawyer. Immediately. Oh, they're telling you that they're not even looking into you, and they just want more information about what went on. Oh, well, here's how you'll get more information, is you'll bring my attorney in here, and then my attorney will be my mouthpiece through which I share information. Because I'm not fucking talking to the cops. And that is how you protect yourself. In this case, the police are constantly involved in the criminal system, and so they are able to protect themselves, and these people walk free even though we know something happened, okay? There are those fucking cops in Brooklyn that sexually assaulted that woman that they came up on 4 people smoking weed. They came up on four people smoking weed. They only arrest the young woman of the 4 people smoking weed. And then they say, oh, you're going to go to prison for a long time unless you have sex with us. They do have sex with her. She goes through a rape kit. But what do these guys do? They understand the criminal system. They're able to protect themselves. They still fucking live in New York. And by the way, you can find their faces online, and you can also buy weapons online. So,
Colin, what are you trying to say?
Just 2 separate facts. Just like how Emmett Till has nothing to do with Ahmaud Arbery. You can buy weapons online, and you can figure out what their faces look like.
You can. And apparently there's some really good weapons now that are, we're going to say airsoft, but you can put real bullets in some of these new ones, and they don't count as firearms because there's no explosive involved. And they will kill people. I'm not saying to do that. I'm just saying that stuff's out there right now, and it's kind of weird and interesting.
This is Arkansas, the recent viral video of the police beating someone.
Oh, I don't know. Man, there's so many, and some days I can't look at it. I just have to watch videos of dogs or horses running around. You know what I mean? Because there's just too much happening, man.
Dude, every one of these fucking videos too. There's the people that do it, who are fucking monsters, right? And then you see, they attract more cops to the situation. And if you see the body cameras or the other cameras, you will always see police officers who are not involved in what's happening, protecting the police officers who are clearly doing some monstrous fucked up shit, or who are regurgitating these absolutely nonsense talking points. In the case of the of this, right, of Breonna Taylor, they have Kenneth walking backwards with his hands up, and they ask him if he's been shot, and he says no, and the cop goes, "Well, that's unfortunate." Hey, man, can you act like a fucking professional if you're going to claim that you are these sovereign, perfect citizens that should be honored in the same breath as the fucking military, and that are just like, you're here to serve and protect the citizens. But here you are hoping that somebody was injured so that they don't get due process when you're a part of the due process of law. Fire that fucking clown. Okay? And every one of these videos, you find other cops doing the same shit. Okay? And that is what I see when I see these fucking thin blue line flags, and when I get on the MTA and I see cops, and the only ones that wear masks are the ones that have found a mask with that fucking thin blue line. All I see right there is, if I see another cop doing some bad shit, no, they didn't.
Right. Their job's hard. Their job's hard. They're putting their lives on the line every day. It's like, you chose that job. Have a little bit of, I don't know, training. Training on the right thing. Have a little compassion.
They're participants of a fucking delusion.
They are participants.
They truly believe that they are there attempting to eliminate crime, when much of what they do is to perpetuate crime and is to protect the property of the most rich property holders. They're not there to prevent shit, okay? And some of them figure it out, and you'll see it. When there was the shooting in Brooklyn where that guy was firing into a train car, and people ran out, and there was a police officer there, and they told the police officer, there are people shot and somebody's shooting on the train car, and that police officer said, I'm here. Is anyone selling anything or hopping the turnstile? That's why I'm here. Oh, fuck you, dude.
What?
This is that they're not about preventing shit. They'll sit outside of your home while there's an intruder in your home violently assaulting you, and they'll sit outside and they'll eat a fucking Dunkin' donut, and it won't be the cornbread one either, because that one's protected. Cornbread,
it's delicious
for life. It's so freaking good. Other than that, they'll eat their fucking donut sitting outside of your apartment while you are assaulted in a car that says protect and serve on it, and while claiming to be there to prevent crime. Fuck cops.
Absolutely.
Vote for me for mayor of New York City.
We did an episode a while ago. I don't remember if it was when we came to YouTube or if it was before we came to YouTube, where we talked about the history of the police. And how did the police force even start? It started with, unfortunately, people hunting slaves. That was our first police force, was to hunt down slaves. And then there was, Boston, where they were there to protect the ports, where rich people paid them to protect the goods. So it was always about the property. It's never been about people, because that's how they viewed slaves, right? Slaves weren't viewed as people. Those were property. It's all the same horrible thing. And I think when you understand that that's what the police is really about, the idea of them being community servants is a lie that we are fed as children. It's not the truth.
No.
Yep.
But there is one good thing that they do. And it's provide a delicious companion to any breakfast of eggs, toast, grits. Just provide that salty little punch.
Is this bacon? Are we talking about pork?
Not pork. The American Pork Lobby sponsors this episode of Nobody Asked. Go outside and find pork in your local grocery store or butcher or cop car.
It's a weird day.
All right. Well, that's the episode.
You know what? Like, Mouthpiece has got a lot of opinions, and I'm here for them.
More opinions in our comment section. Share your radical ideas.
Yes.
Ruin my mayoral run.
I mean, what was your run on? It was on arming women and bathrooms, having bathrooms.
Arming
in
women,
New York.
bathrooms. I'm pro fare evasion. Okay. I'm going to be New York City's first ever pro fare evasion mayor. Okay. I'm going to make the turnstiles even lower. Okay. I'm going to make all of the people that sit in those booths at the MTA, I'm going to make them wear horse blinders. Okay. So they can only look at the person who's asking them why their Metro card doesn't work. That's what they do. Those turnstiles are so low. And, police that are in the train station are only there to stop people who are harassing or assaulting people.
I love it.
They're not there to prevent you from sleeping or to prevent you from hopping the turnstile or selling water. That makes me so mad, dude. How are you going to... oh my gosh, I make this about New York all the time. How are you going to arrest people who sell ice cold water in the train stations for $1? It's a fucking deal, okay? How are you going to arrest these people that are doing the world a favor when your stations that are only accessible by elevator, that are basically fucking brick pizza ovens, you're not going to air condition them? Okay, I have to sit in 168. The one gets delayed because some fuckface jumps in front of the train, right? So now it's 20 minutes till the next one, but there's not a bus upstairs, so I got to wait down in the 168 station. It's 110 degrees, and you're going to arrest someone selling ice cold water? I want the water.
You should give the kid $1 while he's being arrested and take a walk.
I've never seen them arrested in real life.
Oh.
I've seen the closest thing that I've seen is somebody was selling some at the 125th Street station, and there were cops that were like coming into the station, and a guy ran down to the person that was selling stuff and was like, "Cops are coming," and the person like took down all the like $1 signs and then just like held his cooler like normal. I was like, that's pretty good.
Yeah, that works. It's funny. You know what? What if public transit was just like podcasts, right? Where you can listen for free, but if you want to give to the transit authority because you think they're doing a great job and you want them to be recognized, they have a Patreon, and you can give to their Patreon.
I mean, I'm okay with that unless people unlock perks with their increased Patreon patronage, right? Oh. Unless the perk is a T-shirt, right? Yeah, get an MTA T-shirt. That's fine. But if you access a new train line, fuck that. Okay. Public services are public services. Okay. Unless the MTA is a fucking Amtrak subsidiary, it's free. My taxes pay for it.
I got you. I agree. Ashley would like to know if you saw your giant pumpkin.
You know what? It got judged the day before I went to the fair, and then we couldn't find it. I did see giant butter sculpture. I saw the biggest cow ever. I saw the biggest horse ever. These animals, bro, they are nuts. I saw a horse whose eyeball was, I swear, the size of a baseball. I mean, it was crazy bonkers.
It's a good size eyeball.
And then I also saw, I think I saw the largest lamb at the winner of largest lamb or sheep or whatever, and not impressive at all. Everything else was crazy impressive. This sheep, I was like, if I saw this sheep out and about, I wouldn't even turn to someone and be like, that's a big sheep. Be like, that's a sheep. That's how I would respond to it.
Well, maybe they only get so big, without their fluff. Were they shaved? Were they sheared?
They were not sheared, no. I also saw a speed shearing competition. That was pretty fun. They're very aggressive with the animals. but the animals seem super hype after they get shaved. So it's a little bit of a from see from stop. They're like being put in all these ridiculous positions as they're being sheared, and they're sometimes they're protesting, but then when they walk away, they're like, "Damn, who turned on the AC?" So.
I'm glad you had a good time at the fair.
I loved the fair, man. That was fun.
This is adjacent to the to the sheep shearing. I saw something today. It was like somebody was reading a Craigslist ad, and it was a guy. They showed him with his hair and then with his hair shaved, right? Mm-hmm. And he wants to pay people to allow him to shave them bald. And so this guy's like,
I saw this.
So this guy was like, well, let's see what this is about. How much and what's involved? He was like, well, first of all, he offered him $160, but he needed to be nude while he was getting shaved bald. That was part of the deal. That feels like it would be a scary situation.
Oh my God.
He just wants to, it's a man that wants to shave other men's heads bald.
I thought he seemed kind of nice.
I mean, he wanted it to be fun for everyone.
Because the guy was like, why do I have to be naked? And the person was just like, honestly, it's just something that I'm into. I sometimes shave my friends naked, but I wanted to expand my horizons. Isn't that how he responded? And I was like, nice.
Yeah, the cleanup's quicker.
I want to know what weird traumatic experience this is affiliated with that makes this hot for you. But, cool. Here's a little surprise.
Yeah.
Is my father being more fuck 12 than I am. Damn.
The police academy, a 6-month jumping in ceremony, inducting the wrong people into their street gang, brainwashing them into believing their safety is the only concern. Your civil liberties don't matter. Oh man.
That's your husband.
I know. I'm telling you. He looks like one person, but he's another person. Don't judge a book by its cover is what I'm saying.
Oh yeah, no. I love him. It is crazy how angry police get, even online. Like you'll see them get mad in these videos where people are like, "I don't have to give you my ID without probable cause," and they'll get angry in the moment, but. It's still bad, but I think they're reacting to the confrontation and this idea that they're not going to just be able to push you around. But then you see people cops online complaining about how people know their civil liberties. And it's like, dude, self-report like a motherfucker. You're mad that people know their rights? You're supposed to be protecting them. That's the point. And the fact that these cops in these videos will say like, if you just made this easy, you wouldn't be charged with this and this, but now you're definitely getting a ticket. And it's like, so saying it out loud. So saying you attempted to use your rights, and now I'm going to retaliate against you for them, bro. God damn.
All the time. All the time. Asking, what, are you detaining me? Oh, well, I am now. It's like, either you were or you weren't. You know what I mean? Like, what do you need to see my ID card for? Tell me why are you bothering me? Just the mere suggestion, the mere pushback. Oh, well, now you're in trouble. It's like,
oh yeah.
Dude.
Sometimes they'll say like, you're not allowed to not have an ID, not in a car, right? Obviously you have to have a driver's license to drive a car, but sometimes people will get harassed in the world, and they'll be like, can I see your ID? And you'll be like, I don't have my ID on me. And like, you have to have your ID out in New York. No, you fucking don't. That's like one of the most protected things, is that there's no federal ID requirement. God damn. Do you know who should be, when is Joe Biden going to make a hate crime bill for blacks?
Never.
I don't know.
Realistically.
He's always been like a
little racist.
He serves the crime. Okay, I was going to say it differently, but dude, you know who should be a cop? The super in my building, because here's an interaction that we had recently. Okay, so one, we might think he's a little racist, but Also, so when our dog gets dog sat, it's by a black guy that goes to school in Staten Island, and so he starts texting us that our super is harassing him, that our dog can't go in the elevator. Now we've had this dog for more than a year. He goes in the elevator all the time, and we're like, what the fuck, right? Well, now he has not told. We know the other dog owners of the building. He has not told the other dog owners this, but now he starts saying it to Ellie and I. I'm sure for the sake of looking, looking consistent. Um, and he tells Ellie, I think yesterday morning, she brings the dog into the elevator and goes, "You can't have the dog in the elevator." And we go, "The dog and so go in the elevator." They're like, no, look on your lease. And Ellie tries to argue, but he's like, "Don't talk to me, talk to housing. These are just the rules. It says it on your lease." Now here's why I think he should be a cop. I'm like, it says this on our lease? That's crazy. And it's interesting that he's only recently been saying anything about it. So I look at our lease, and it specifically says on our lease that dogs are allowed on the elevator as long as they are leashed or held by the owner. Our dog's always on a leash. I mean, he's a sniffing dog, so he will get distracted. He's on a leash. So each of these times that the guy has complained, he says it's on a leash. So I go, oh, I mean, I'm giving myself way too much credit. But I say, okay, miscommunication. I go down to Rohan's office, Rohan being the super, and I show him the lease, and I go, it says that we can have him on the elevator while he's on a leash. And suddenly he goes, I don't care about the lease. It's just the rules. I go, so cop, okay? So cop. Tells you the rules are one thing. Then you go, actually, the rules are this. And he goes, no, the rules are whatever I say. And I go, okay, well, here's a couple things. One, this is what the lease says, so I'm going to do what the lease says. He goes, no, take it up with housing, okay? You're complaining to me and it's for no reason. I'm like, housing wrote this lease. I don't need to talk to housing. You need to talk to housing because their lease says I can have the dog in the passenger elevator. And he goes, oh, I don't care. And then here's why he should really be a cop. He says that 2 weeks ago, a dog pooped in the elevator, and that's why he started using this rule. So not only is it not a rule, and he doesn't care that it's not a rule, and he tried to use the lease to his advantage, but it's not actually in the lease, he also says it's retaliation against the dogs. Now, it's not our fucking dog that did this, but he's retaliating against the dogs because he has a vendetta against dogs. And so that's why he's making this big fuss about it. I say, look, man, the reason that we're approved to have this dog is that my girlfriend has epilepsy. And so this dog is like a therapy dog. It's there's a correct term for it, but this dog we have because she has epilepsy. And taking the stairs is an undue risk for Ellie because if you have a seizure on the stairs, it's a much greater risk of injury than a seizure in an elevator, right? And so you are asking her to take on some excess risk. And then I recorded this because New York is a single-party consent state. I have a recording of my super going, epilepsy is not an excuse, and I don't care about your lease. The dog can't go in the elevator. I go, I'm taking the dog on the elevator. You can try to stop me, but I will record you trying to stop me. My lease says I can take it on the elevator, and the lease outweighs you. So I think he should be a cop. I think he would really like it. I think he would really like just getting to decide what the rules are and getting mad at people and retaliating against them for knowing what the rules are. I think that would be fun. Rohan for cop, 2024.
But then you have to also ask the question, how differently would this conversation have gone if your dog sitter, who is a black man, would have been the one having that conversation?
Well, because he's a black man, I do think that he was just like, oh, okay. And then
he's like, I'm not going to engage with this crazy person. Yeah.
Yeah. There are complexities. My super is not white. So there are complexities to this whole situation. You know, racism in New York takes on a different texture because there's all sorts of inter-racism. It's not just the white people against the
Absolutely.
It's
Absolutely.
all across the board.
I think sometimes we don't realize how much, how varied the racism is. You know what I mean? Like different different ethnicities hate different ethnicities. It's not a black and white thing. It's a lot of weird color things.
A lot of weird shit.
A lot of weird stuff that you don't expect. Yeah, you saw some weird stuff at MIT. We saw weird stuff during COVID. But
funky.
That's a sidetrack. That's a bit of a sidetrack.
Well, we emailed the housing office, and they haven't responded in 2 days, and they usually respond like immediately. So I sensed that I said something where they were like, "Whoa, this smells like lawsuit. Let's make sure that we really cover our bases right here," because he said that Ellie's medical condition doesn't matter. He straight up said that that our contract doesn't matter, so that's breach of lease, which is a pretty significant reason that we're required to pay rent, is that our lease is an agreement between us and the owner. And so if they breach the lease, woof. And so they're like, oh boy, okay. Uh-oh. So they have not responded yet. But we're still taking the dog on the elevator. Fuck that guy.
Yeah, I'm sure you don't let your dog, poop on the elevator. Who left that? That's not nice.
Who left what?
Who left the poop in the elevator, though?
Dude, here's my thing. How does he know it's a dog poop? This is New York.
I mean, that would have been my question as well.
I know.
No.
But it's because we've always known he has a vendetta against dogs. So this is a meme about our super, is that he hates dogs. To the point where there's other maintenance workers in our building, because it's Columbia, so there's multiple supers and maintenance workers for multiple buildings. And those maintenance workers will be like, oh, don't let Rohan see the dog here, right? Or Rohan hates dogs, so do this. All the other maintenance workers love the dog. It's just Rohan. So
well, he's a good doggy.
He's a good dog. He's about to go outside right now.
Oh. Okay.
Well,
I think we made it to the end of this.
Yep.
We talked about a lot of nonsense. I just want to say, I would like to just point out that Merrick Garland, he's a ballsy dude, and I'm here for it. He's doing the hard stuff that I think most people are afraid to do. Going after cops in the Breonna Taylor case, that's ballsy. Going after Trump and Mar-a-Lago, ballsy. This is a ballsy motherfucker.
Fuck yeah, bro. Garland gang.
Yep.
I just voted in the New York primaries, and one of the people I voted for got 81% of the vote. It was really not a contest. He's yeah. So I mean, it doesn't matter. He's good. He's left. He's pretty far left. I think he has some ideas that are pretty reductive, but he has this whole we need to increase affordable housing, but he's also anti-zoning. He's got this very NIMBY zoning opinion, but he was my only option. The other one.
What's NIMBY mean? I don't know the word NIMBY.
Not in my backyard.
Oh, okay.
And then the other one, the state senator, the one I voted for, lost. But they had very similar policies. It's just that one was endorsed by the mayor, and I fucking hate the mayor, so I voted for the other one. Bada bing.
Bada bing. Well, I would like to thank everybody for keeping us company today as we talked about Breonna Taylor. I don't know what we're going to talk about next. There's endless topics to choose from lately, like what's going on with the world. But, I'm sure we'll come up with something interesting. Until then, we'll see you next week. Should we sing it out?
Yep.
Okay.
Love you guys.
Oh.
Oh, yeah. Fuck the cops.
I should have been ready.